Welcome to Platinum Hunters Extra, the show where we take a look at trophy information, oddities, and sometimes news that's adjacent to trophies. And Sony has a lot of gas. They are telling us that they have a lot of gas, 10 gas in the works right now. And by gas, I should probably mention that is an acronym that stands for Games as a Service. And in this video, we are going to decipher what those 10 projects could be. These projects could be internally made by actual PlayStation studios, or they could be partnerships between not owned studios and PlayStation studios working in a second party development. So that means when you start up the game, it's going to say PlayStation Studios on it, whether Sony owns the company or not. And I'm not going to include cases that are already out. So you won't see Destruction All-Stars, you won't see Destiny 2 on this list. You're just going to see ones that are coming out. And I assume when they made this announcement, when Bungie was purchased by Sony, Sony meant by 2025, we're going to have 10 new projects that are currently in the works out by 2025, and they're all going to be games as a service. So let's get into this list. I'm going to start from the most likely, or ones that are sort of been confirmed, to the least likely and more speculative games on this 10 game list. And first, I've talked about it before in my last video, this is kind of a companion piece. The first one is Last of Us 2 Factions, which Naughty Dog has been working very hard on. They've told us that they've delayed this because they are working hard on it, and they've confirmed themselves they are working on it. So I'm not going to spend too much time here on this one because I did talk about it in my last video, which is in the description below if you want to check it out. But Last of Us 2 Factions is a for sure games as a service game, and its release is sort of imminent. Next up is Bungie, who has confirmed that they are working on another project other than Destiny. And we know that this game is a hero shooter inspired multiplayer service game, and we know it's taking a different approach than Destiny, being more lighthearted, more hero focused, and more colorful. In case you didn't hear, or you've been living under a rock, Sony purchased Bungie for $3.6 billion, and no, that doesn't mean that Sony owns Halo now. No, it just means that Bungie is now a PlayStation studio, despite the fact that they got pretty much the golden contract to do whatever they want. And while Destiny is far from over, it's expected to keep going until 2024. Matter is the new project they're working on, and that will be a live service game and one of these 10. Next game we'll talk about is Twisted Metal, and there have been some very interesting developments on this front. Initially, we had thought, and it'd been reported on, that Lucid Games, the team behind Destruction All-Stars, was the ones to shepherd this live service game, which is apparently going to be free to play and a live service ongoing game. But now it's being reported that Firesprite is the studio that will be helming this game, and the game director of Lucid Games, Matt Southern, has moved over to Firesprite and will still remain the game director of the project, only this time just at Firesprite. So essentially, the project is still going, it's just changed hands from Lucid to Firesprite, and this will be one of those live service games, free to play apparently, but one of those live service games that Sony is talking about. Another project we talked about in our last video was about Guerrilla Games' second project being led by Simon LaRoche, who is the former game director of Rainbow Six Siege, and as well worked on the multiplayer component that never came out for Guardians of the Galaxy. So this dev is seasoned with live service games, and Guerrilla is working on a second project that will be a live service game. We know that much, although it has been unannounced right now what it is, and there's conflicting information about what it could be. There's sources that are saying it is a Horizon game, but when I look for those sources, I can't seem to find where it's coming from. I personally think that with Simon LaRoche's pedigree and the pedigree of the studio making games like Killzone, I do think it is a live service version of an FPS game, and I do think it is either Killzone or they could be bringing back SOCOM into the mix, and it's going to be a live service game that's very similar or maybe a variation of Rainbow Six Siege. Out of all of the first party projects, I think this is the most speculative. It's just when it comes to the information, we don't have something very concrete. We're just going by different job listings and stuff that has been reported on various news outlets. The last game coming from Sony's internal teams comes from PlayStation London Studios, who made The Getaway, Blood and Truth, and a whole bunch of other classic PlayStation games. Well, they have told us themselves they are working on a online type of game, which means it's going to be a live service kind of game. The project itself is unannounced and we don't know what it is. We assume it's going to be a new IP, but it could also be an online version of either Blood and Truth or The Getaway. We don't know. They just have said themselves they are working on a project. It is online focused, which means it will be an ongoing live service kind of game. Now we get into more of the second party studio games that are being developed, where Sony is funding these studios to make these projects, and there is a trio of 3 that we know of that all got studio announcements, and now we're starting to hear more about these projects that are still unannounced, but we're starting to get a little more feel for what these games are going to end up being. First is Deviation Games, and I do think that this is the one that's the most far along out of these 3 different projects, because we've seen them come on stage at Summer Games Fest and talk about their game. These are ex-members of the studio Treyarch, which is under Activision, which is now under Microsoft, and they are working on a FPS title. It will have a story-driven single-player campaign, multiplayer, arcade modes, and competitive versions, and it's going to be an ongoing service type of game. Considering these are the guys that have shepherded many of the greatest Call of Duty games, I expect this game to be a variation on Call of Duty, and I think it's going to be very awesome, because look what happened when the Infinity Ward guys ended up at Respawn and created Titanfall. These guys are just destined to make a great game, and I do think it's the most far along, and we will see more of it this year. It's just a matter of when they're going to show this game off. The next team we'll probably see something from very soon is Firewalk, which is under the Probably Monsters banner. And these guys have created tons of single player and multiplayer experiences, including Guitar Hero 2, BioShock Infinite, Destiny, Mass Effect, Apex Legends. They have a huge pedigree and have worked on a ton of projects, and now they're making their very own online multiplayer game. In what capacity and what genre, we don't know. All we know is they opened their studio in 2018, they announced their partnership with Sony in 2021, and that they'll have more to share coming soon. And the last studio from this trifecta of second party relationship games is Haven Studios, and this is being led by Jade Raymond, formerly of Ubisoft and EA and Stadia, unfortunately, poor her, but they are working on a new live service experience as well. Again, we don't know what it is, but Jade does say it has a persistent and evolving online environment accessible by a PC or by PlayStation console, also suggesting that it will have social elements to it, and they didn't elaborate how, but it does seem like it's going to be a social platform. Out of these big 3, this is the least developed game so far because the studio is newer, and we'll probably get more information as time goes on. I expect it to be coming out a little bit later in this timeline than the other 2, but we'll find out what it is in due time. So that's 8 spots so far filled for this GaaS initiative that Sony has, and these last 2 are the most speculative on the list, and we do not have very much concrete evidence pointing to what they are. But if you've enjoyed this video so far, let me know by hitting that like button. Let me know you made it this far into the video. But without further ado, let's keep going. Now here's one that not many people are talking about, and I'm gonna put my neck out speculating this game being made by a studio called Gravity Well. Now this studio is comprised of former Respawn developers. Now even the article that is reporting on it, which is coming from Xputer, I'm going to give them big credit here for finding this information, but even they're saying take this information with a pinch of salt. This studio, Gravity Well, is working on a brand new IP, and the game is a game with AAA sensibilities and a live service game. This could be a situation where a press release on the PlayStation blog is imminent, telling us that PlayStation is working with Gravity Well to make this a second-party game and have it as part of this 10 live service initiative. But the reason I haven't included it with the other 3 is because we're waiting for that. As well, a lot of this is speculation. They do say on their website that they've partnered with a major Western publisher, and Sony is, as far as we know, even though they've kind of moved in that direction, they're not technically a Western publisher. They are a Japanese company, but it could still happen that they are working with Sony on this project. I'm sure Sony would be happy to give them the money, and I think it makes sense given the Firewalk, Deviation games, and Haven style relationship that they've built with those 3 companies. And for our final spot, I had trouble pinning down a 10th game, and these are some projects that could fit inside that mold. But there's not a lot of concrete evidence to suggest that they are live service games. I think a lot of people are jumping the gun on this piece of information, but people are thinking that Insomniac Games is working on their own multiplayer standalone project. And that's based on a set of job listings that came out from Insomniac themselves on Twitter. However, there is no indication of whether this is its own separate project, and it could be the case that this could be multiplayer hirings for Spider-Man 2, which has 2 protagonists in it now, thanks to Miles Morales joining the cast. We could be seeing that get some kind of multiplayer mode, not necessarily a live service game. But honestly, these guys are so surprising that I wouldn't be surprised if they told us we're working on yet another project on top of Spider-Man 2 and on top of Wolverine. These guys never sleep apparently, so just got it. Insomniac. Very funny. The other project I'm thinking of is that Ghost of Tsushima Legends will be expanded upon in some way. This thing was too successful for Sucker Punch to not do it, and it's already being expanded on now at a very slow pace, but I can imagine we see something much bigger planned for that next Ghost of Tsushima project that they are probably working on right now. And like Insomniac, we've seen job listings suggesting they are hiring people for multiplayer. And that's Sony's 10 GaaS games. But let me know down in the comments section if you think I missed something, or if there's another project you think was part of those 10 games as a service titles. Let me know down in the comment section, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys in the next trophy guide. Hope all your trophy hunting expeditions go insanely well, and peace out.